Maybe you're somebody who hasn't been following this channel for a while. Maybe you're somebody who has. Either way, perhaps you'll indulge me as I tell you a little bit about myself. Hey, what's up? I am Ken. This is KenfuTV. And each week I release videos in the martial arts, philosophy, technique, training, that sort of thing. Feels a little weird to say that because I haven't said it in a while. It used to be the intro to these videos, but I've since abandoned that and gone a different direction. But I thought maybe it would be appropriate today. Perhaps we start off with, what is all this kenfu nonsense? Why do you even want to watch this channel? I don't know why you want to watch this channel. I'm just a dude doing martial arts who video journals rather than writing things down to share what I'm learning, what I'm coming to understand, mistakes I've made, things that I feel good about, anything that comes across my path that I feel is worth talking about, some of my philosophies and ideas and thoughts, and some of the people who have been in my life. There's been some great videos that have had my instructors or other people in my life that I've been able to share with this channel. When it comes to me, there's not a lot of old footage or things like that. I wish that there was, so when I have something, I'll try to splice it into this video so that you can see it, but I'll tell you a little bit about my journey, how I got here, how I started doing the martial arts, and maybe that'll even validate a little bit of why I do the things that I do or think the things that I do. Like so many people, I started off getting interested in the martial arts because of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the Power Rangers and the Karate Kid and probably way too many Van Damme movies for as young as I was when I started watching them. But I fell in love with these ideas of the martial arts being transformative in your life, giving you purpose, allowing you to become really good at something, overcoming self-doubt and lack of self-confidence. And I did not end up doing it because I was bullied or anything like that. I literally just thought it looked awesome. I watched the Power Rangers. One of the things that I loved the most was not them fighting monsters and doing that, but was them hanging out and experiencing this community that they had with each other. And when they trained and that kind of stuff, that just kind of built that tighter, and they went through everything together, and I loved the idea of that. So to me, the dojo was always going to be a place that had that to it, that community, that group of people who kind of helped be a part of your life, steer you different directions, steer you away from other directions, whatever. I loved that stuff. I just fell in love with it. I ended up doing some karate, Yoshukai Karate, in Dothan, Alabama when I was some kind of preteen, probably. I don't exactly remember. But it was only for a couple months because it was a summer thing. I grew up in Wyoming and Alabama, back and forth, and over the summer I was able to take a course, but then it was time to go back to Wyoming. Asked my sensei at the time, how do I keep going? And he said, find a Japanese karate school, you'll do fine. But then I got back and there wasn't one. I couldn't find one. I could find Taekwondo. I couldn't find a Japanese karate school. And I eventually just quit looking, and I didn't go for years and years and years. It wasn't until 2006, working for the IT company that I recently purchased, that kind of a big success story for me, being able to put a lot of energy and effort into a place, build it, watch it grow, add to what it's capable of, and then eventually take over and be able to lead it with my wife and have a great team of people providing IT in Casper. That's been incredible, and one of the things that came out of that was meeting my instructor. In 2006, repairing a laptop, my boss had told me about a guy who's done this karate stuff. He's gone to Okinawa in Japan. He's done this stuff. So I asked him about it. I start talking to him, and he says, yeah, come by. And I have been there ever since. He instructed Seo Shorin-ryu out of Casper, Wyoming. He worked directly with Soke Dan Housel out of the Laramie University of Wyoming school. That club, that was kind of at the time, that was the primary club. And so I started training with him. Seo Shorin-ryu did karate, did Kobudo, the Yamane-ryu lineage of Kobudo, did some Japanese jiu-jitsu, and that was primarily it at the time. Along the way, I got introduced to so many different people, and one of those people was Gabriel Phillips. He was the Aikido instructor, here in Casper, and I started training with him a little bit, which was very fun. The first time I ever went over there was just to take some pictures, but I never actually got on the mat. Later, I would go back with a guy that I was working with, and he was training over at Aikido of Casper, so I started going and trained for a while. And they say that you shouldn't start Aikido until you have a black belt in something else, and I agree with that, because it felt too difficult to try to maintain two different directions. The Seisho-in-ryu was very abrupt and direct, and the Aikido was very the opposite. It wanted to be able to move around and with somebody. They were totally different intentions. So I didn't keep that going for a while, but it was always in the back of my mind. I also, along the way, met another guy at work, introduced me to Guru John Balshazak. He was the guy. He said, man, my uncle does this stuff with sticks. You'd love it. It's super cool. We'll go by sometime. So we went and got 6-pack of beer and went over there, and the guy's chain smoking cigarettes and hit me with sticks. And I fell in love with Escrima in that moment. He's telling me stories, showing me drills, different things, and told my instructor that I had met this guy and was working with him. They said, oh yeah, I know him. And it turns out that they had trained for a long time. And so ended up kind of building that back as well. The Escrima group was meeting in the basement, like a wrestling room in the basement of a school. Started training there right up until they broke for the summer. A lot of the guys were older guys, retired or whatever. They'd go and they would get on their boats, hit the lake, do whatever for the summer, and then come back and start again. But when they came back on a day that I was already committed to doing karate, so I had to put that on hold. So now Aikido, Escrima on hold, Seisho-in-ryu pushing forward. I've got a handful of opportunities to go to Laramie and train with Soke Housel and the group there for some of the seminars and clinics that they put on, and that was super fun. Got a chance to keep expanding my knowledge, but also get to go support my instructor and work with him while we were there, which was always very cool. Eventually, as it would come, did end up testing for my black belt in Seisho-in-ryu. That was many years ago now, 2010, I think is when that was. And that knowledge of karate, Kobudo, jiu-jitsu, that was the foundation that I started with. Over time, I was able to start training the Aikido again. It went much better because I had invested so much time in Seisho-in-ryu to learn my body, myself, the way that I move, to understand how to make little adjustments to the way I do things. So that helped moving into Aikido go a lot better. I was also finally able to start pursuing the Kali Escrima again. I'd never stopped. I took the things that I learned and I continued to work them. I joke about learning, getting my black belt in the kitchen, because I would work in the kitchen just working through my drills and things in my head, visually working off of all of that. Anything that I could remember that we worked on in that class, I would be doing with a spatula while I'm cooking something or doing whatever. Eventually, we were able to get Guru John to come out and start teaching one day a week at the Seisho-in-ryu school, and was able to put in some time. His instructor, Maestro Mike, came down, and at that time I got promoted to my black belt in that art, and I was pushing to continue to teach that art here and make it something that wasn't just a one day a week win for a few months sort of thing, but to make it an ongoing thing. Continued to train, eventually opened up my own school with Guru John. He wasn't really teaching too much anymore at that time. In fact, I thought that art wasn't really getting taught too much anymore. I had heard that the group in Hawaii wasn't really doing it anymore. The group in Idaho wasn't really doing it anymore. I knew our group in town wasn't really doing much. And it just felt like I was literally watching an art die. And so I set out, I got permission and set out to open a group and start training. Brought a bunch of people to a park. We didn't have a place to train yet, and continued training. Some of them still training with me to this day. Eventually, I figured out that the group in Hawaii was definitely still going. The group in Idaho was definitely still going. That there were groups in Virginia and Tennessee and Washington and all over the place, which was very exciting. Got to kind of expand my family, my martial family, and I've had some great opportunities to train. We had a huge gathering in Las Vegas. That was kind of a historical thing. Batikam would come down and train in Vegas, and everybody show up to a hotel room and get together. So we had everybody gather up in Las Vegas, and we trained for a couple days. Really, really great experience. and got to meet a ton of these people, which was super, super cool. In the meantime, since Gabe and I, we started doing this Budo buffet thing where we get together on like Saturdays, and I'd come in with some karate, some Escrima, some Kobudo. He'd have his Aikido, some capoeira that was in his background. Guru John was there. Matt, good buddy of mine, Matt, who's been training with me for a long time, he was there, had a Krav background, and had been training with Gabe for a long time at that time. And we would have this buffet. Somebody would be like, oh, let me show you this thing. And then somebody's like, oh, I have something like that. And it was literally that. We were just sharing experiences and seeing things that were similar in the different arts and how the different arts approached them. And that was an incredible way to spend an afternoon with your friends. It was really fun. I can't encourage that kind of experience more. Definitely, if you've got the opportunity to kind of share knowledge, be sharing knowledge. Somewhere in about 2012, 2013, I think, there was a Okinawa Kempo gathering at our dojo, and a bunch of people came because my instructors, before he trained Seisho and Ryu, he trained Okinawa Kempo. So a bunch of instructors, a bunch of people came because the head of the school was changing, and that took place at our school, that gathering. One of the guys that came in was Kyoshi Sherborne, and my instructor started working with him on Okinawan Kobudo of the Odo Mariyoshi lineage, and also started introducing the concept of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So that was where that began for me as an additional thing. My instructor added the Odo lineage of Kobudo to what we did entirely. So we had Yamane-ryu, we had Odo. In fact, we kind of switched more to the Mariyoshi method of that. He preferred the way that it worked, its approach, different aspects of it. And so we continued to kind of do that. We maintained both, but he started pushing more the Mariyoshi direction. We also added the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because it gave us a more rounded thing. What if you throw someone on the ground, you go to the ground, what do you do from there? That became the beginning of my interest in jiu-jitsu, but it was a very difficult one because Kyoshi Sherborne was in London, Ontario, Canada, and not close. So we didn't get to do that very often. That had its ups and downs, and over time, that didn't continue to go, and more recently, I've joined the Reuniting Academy. I was doing some private lessons with Rick Ellis while he was in Laramie. Have been able to meet and train with Devin Henry in Cheyenne, and I'm slowly through the Reuniting Academy expanding my exposure to really great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu martial artists. Recently got my blue belt and have continued to push a Jiu-Jitsu program inside of our school by itself, separate of the other arts, rather than being a bolted-on piece. We're training Jiu-Jitsu specifically all the time. So karate, Jiu-Jitsu, Escrima happening regularly. In and around that same time, maybe 2014, maybe later, I'm bad with dates and I didn't write all this stuff down, but I met Harry Groves. Harry Groves was one of the people doing Escrima, but he also was doing Tai Chi for Health, Dr. Paul Lam kind of stuff. And so I started training Tai Chi and really, really enjoy that. And because of the karate and the other background that I have, I could see the martial application in it. And so him and I have spent a lot of time going through that because he had the Tai Chi for health, the movement for better balance and joint health and things like that. But a strong interest in the martial without having martial instruction. So while it would be better to find somebody who does have the martial instruction of Tai Chi, him and I have just shared knowledge and worked together to build up that understanding. So that introduced Tai Chi into my life. So at this point, karate, Kobudo, Escrima, Aikido, Tai Chi, Jiu-Jitsu, Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I really enjoy the martial arts, and all of these things blend and go together so well. And over time, I've had a chance to train with different people in Jeet Kune Do and a little bit of Wing Chun and some Silat and some different things. Capoeira, whatever. Anything I could get my hands on. A little bit of boxing for a while. Anything I could get my hands on to help see the arts that I train better. I wasn't going to pursue them because I wanted to just bolt on another art that I'm capable of doing. I wanted to use the knowledge of that as a way to understand what I do better. So find seminars I could do, seminars with Guru Dan on the Escrima and the Jeet Kune Do, seminars in Judo, seminars in Silat, different things that you can do, anything I could do to build that perspective, but not replace what I'm doing and not spread myself out too much. I truly believe that cross-training is good, but you have to have a focus. You have to have a foundation, and you have to have a focus. Because without a foundation, you don't really have anything to build off of. And if you don't have a focus, you're not really making progress in any one direction. So how do you overcome that? And that's having a focus, having somewhere you're trying to go, and then being able to use that as a metric to measure, am I having success using this cross-training to improve what I can do? That's been a huge and important thing. If you cross-train, that's what I think should happen. 2016-ish, 2017, maybe even as early as 2015, my instructor started taking a step back. He was realizing that he needed to pull back and be able to do some training on his own, other stuff. He's currently pursuing Aikido and different things himself. And he started allowing the school to migrate over to me and decided to pass the school over to me. So the Seoshonru school in Casper became a school that I operated. Eventually, I started teaching the Escrima, which was being taught in a totally different place. In that same building, I brought in Harry teaching Tai Chi in there. I've continued to work and build those programs, continued to push for the Jiu-Jitsu program to grow, and started finding my own direction in the karate, pursuing the knowledge, my understanding, expanding it as much as I could. And a lot of that, you'll see those discussions on this channel. And for members, you get access to the Dojo sessions. You'll see exactly how I teach it, the way I teach it on the mat, my perspective and understanding of karate, of Kobudo, of Jiu-Jitsu, of Escrima. All of that stuff has changed so much over the years and has been influenced by so many things and continues to be. Right now, I'm spending one day a week training kickboxing, hoping to spend some time here soon with my judo coach here in town. There's a judo sensei who's very good, Justin Smith. He's incredible, and I'm hoping to be able to spend some time on the mat with him. So continuing to expand what I have in my knowledge to be able to pass the martial arts in the way that I think it should be passed. The tradition of continuing to grow and adapt and evolve, rather than just keeping everything exactly the same in ways that I've come to understand over time have been flawed through time, through generations and different exposures to different things. The martial arts have gone many ways, not all of them good ways. And so I'm using my time and my energy to study and understand and explore and experience everything I can to grow the arts to be more capable, more functional, more practical, and able to handle situations that make sense and not weird ones that just match movements, but only match those movements, regardless of whether or not those movements are likely to occur in that way ever. When it comes to me, I really haven't done any competition. My instructor had done competition and was not very fond of it. And as you do, you take on your instructor's thoughts a bit. And so I had no interest in doing competition. These days, I've come 180 on that. I encourage it. I have students that compete. I encourage people that are competing. I think it's really good. I still don't do it, and that's because of my pursuit of a practical self-defense situation. I feel like competition has so many positive things to gain, and especially when it comes to that community and things that people are looking at. But you also have to face yourself. You got to go through failure. You've got to work on individual expressions of your art, reaction times, different things, all this stuff that you got to do to compete well. But the circumstances, they don't line up with what I want to prepare myself for. And I don't want to prepare myself one way while trying to get another way. And maybe that's a flawed thought. I don't think that it is. I continue to pursue from this idea of how do I make sure that my training, my emphasis, my priority matches the concepts that I'm pursuing, which is being able to defend yourself realistically, understanding the reality of violence, and that movies and TV and even fights you had in school and things like that are not representative of managing the realities of violence and abuse and domestic abuse and mental trauma and all of these things. I want to be able to share that with people because I think that there's a lot there that goes left unsaid or unexplored. Don't get me started about women's self-defense courses and how poorly they prepare people for anything at all. There are good ones. Caveat that. There are good ones. The average are awful. And I say that being a person who has assisted with and led bad self-defense programs. The more I study, the more I understand, the more I come to know that there is a lot of work to be done in that department. So here we are years later. I still continue to run the school. I have brought in another instructor who started training under me, who also did taekwondo and kickboxing and that sort of thing. And he came in and brought his programs. We merged up so that we could start working together more rather than him having to be somewhere else, then teach a class and then zoom over to take a class from me. We decided to put it all in the same building. He's since kind of stopped doing the taekwondo, but he does a lot of the kickboxing and continues to have a great and thriving kickboxing program. So the school's got karate and kickboxing and Kobudo and jiu-jitsu and Escrima and Tai Chi. Harry's continued to train, bringing in yoga instructors and combat fitness style bar instructors, things like that. That's the future of the dojo in Casper, and where it's going is to become a place. We literally call it the Dojo. Ended up changing the name to Casper Dojo so it wasn't too generic, but the intent was to call it the Dojo because it just wanted to be the place of the way. A place you go to train whatever it is you want to train. We've got multiple things. You want to train striking arts? Great. You want to train grappling arts? Great. You want to train weapons arts? Great. You want to train for health and wellness? Great. You want to train competition? You want to train self-defense? Whatever. We've got options. Mix and match, build the perfect thing for you, and it continues to grow and become an incredible place, a really satisfying place for me in my life. And that's what I do, and that's where all of my experiences come from. So when I make these videos, it's because of those experiences that I have something to talk about. And it's because of this history that I've shared with you today that I have the opinions that I have, the feelings that I have, and the knowledge or opinions to share. Not everything I say is worth. I'm one person. I continue to learn. So I'm going to say things that I feel strongly about only to come back and correct or contradict myself later because I've learned something else. So a really great quote that said something about do the best that you can until you know better and then do better. That's what I hope to do. That's what I hope to continue to offer is my knowledge as it is with the intent of growth constantly and constantly come back and teach it better, share more as I can. I'm Ken. This is KenfuTV, and I'm glad you're along for the ride.